think we've kind of covered the intro. One topic that I already mentioned we were going to bring it up is censorship. Um, what are your thoughts on the current state of censorship? Do you think there are any scenarios where censorship is warranted or beneficial? Um, yeah, what's your thoughts on censorship, and then, specifically social media censorship and, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, this sort of
It's a great question. It's a great
phenomena.
topic. It's a great question. It's a great topic, G. I think where I want to start with that is by saying, regardless of where this conversation goes, as far as personal thoughts on is censorship good or not, one of the things that I've learned, G, people are still starting to learn and understand me. But G, you know me, and one of the things is that one of the things I love to do, I love to take a step back, and I like to see these different situations and scenarios and things play out. And the reason why is because there are so many things that I feel can be used for good when it comes to, hey, let us tell you why we need to do it this way. The problem is that what I've noticed along my journey is that those things, it's like giving a mouse a piece of cheese. He's going to come back for the whole slice next time. It's like, okay, sure, entity that wants to censor, there of course are good reasons for certain things maybe being looked at or rehashed that could be detrimental, or that could be um, just really not in good light for humanity, or for kids, or
Yeah, I mean,
for
I don't think you want to see a terrorist beheading on Twitter.
exactly.
Uh,
There's a time and a place for it. The problem is that we all know how this works. In our community, we know how this works, right? Like, okay, it starts with a little bit. Next thing you know, it starts with a word, then it's a sentence, then it's a paragraph. Next thing you know, it's the whole damn thing, right?
it's anything
And
that doesn't fit the narrative.
doesn't fit the narrative.
We talk about narrative all
So
the time.
and gee, it goes that way with a lot of things, right? It's like, yeah, of course, I can understand why this could be good if it was used for good. But most of the time, when we follow the money, when we follow the companies, when we follow the names of the bloodlines that own, run, manage, delegate, whatever the case is, there's a lot of foggy and grayed out areas in these things. So to get back to your question, after making that preference, what I'm getting at is, you're asking, is it good for a multi-billion, gazillion dollar company who is one of, we're talking, they call consulting firm the big four. Well, there's the big 4 or 5 of tech too. And I would say that some of these entities are obviously the mainstream ones are in it, and we just know how given an inch can turn into a mile with things like that. So the state of censorship right now is really interesting, and I think it took its sacrificial introduction when they completely just shunned Trump and just tossed him to the side. I feel like there was a whole new pivot in censorship there. And from there, started the I mean, man, even if you start to type something that doesn't fit the narrative now, a warning or a prompt will pop up and say, hey, you should probably double check this. And they're telling you that because it's like, listen, we already see where you're going with this, and we're probably going to scratch it. So we're giving you an opportunity to maybe reword this. That's the stuff that I'm talking about, that when you're starting there, where are we going to be in 10 years? Where are we going to be in 20 years? As machine learning continues to evolve, algorithms continue to be even smarter. Literally, I feel algorithms nowadays know the narrative. And if something in its ecosystem is not fitting that, it will pinpoint it, and it
Well,
will go
I
get
can't.
it.
I mean, yeah, yes, there's a lot of that, especially if you already have a large following.
Well, and that's what I was going to get to.
And
See,
people like
that's what I,
me, they'll
no,
let more slide because
of
they know
course.
it's not getting that many views.
Of course, but everyone wants growth. Everyone wants to scale, whether it's a podcast, a Twitch account, a social media, whatever. And as you start to grow and scale, the thought of knowing that you're more targeted in the sense of censorship, is it is a little alarming, and it is a problem, especially when you see the things that are censored. So we can have, you know, certain things being shown on social media entities that we're like, come on, seriously, we're going to show this such and such on here doing this, but yet, you know, questioning something might make your account get deleted or suspended. We see it all the time, especially in the community, that we're a part of and that we interact a lot with. We see it all the time, whether it's getting the comments cut off, the retweets cut off, or the account suspended altogether. And a lot of the times, it's not even for stating what is considered fact. It's for just bringing up a topic or questioning or
Mhm.
asking something that will make you think, or research in a different direction. Um, and that is, I feel, a serious problem. And it's only getting, like I said, I feel like the Trump thing was the big, you know, they always align it with something that it catches the masses' attention. Oh man, they kicked Trump off. And then comes all this information from Twitter and and other entities that are telling you why they did it. And basically how this is the norm moving forward if you choose to move in that direction, in a sense. And I mean, you people who listen to us, and you've heard me say this a lot, G, a lot of these things that, you know, because there's a philosophy, there's a psychology to it where it's like, hey, even if the masses don't want to do what we want them to do, we're going to edge them along. We're going to almost do things that's going to make them say, hey, you know, we need your help now because we can't fix this problem. And they'll drill you right into that. And one way of doing that is having someone that they consider a loose wire like Trump, or anybody else with an opinion or of their own, or something that doesn't fit the narrative, to cancel them, in a sense. And I do think that's alarming because who's, I mean, at this point, who's even monitoring this stuff, right? It's the algorithms, it's the technology, it's the AI. So when you have something coded to do something, you know, at some point it's going to do its job. And I mean, I mean, how many more dystopian movies do we need to see about where that usually takes us into the future? Listen, I'm not saying it's obviously there's certain things that are good about it, but I always, as you know, G, I like to bring the other side of it because I see how these things work. You
The
know,
cynical side.
the cynical side, the
Yeah,
more
I'm
pessimistic side.
in a minute here. I'm gonna provide the optimistic side, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
let you
no, and
finish.
I do know obviously there's an optimistic side to that, but um, you know, as much as technology has advanced in our personal lifetime, we're just scratching the surface on where this is going.
I agree.
And
I agree.
with the movies, the different,
Well, that's why I think it's imperative that as human beings, we need to speak up. We need to use our voice, regardless of who you are. Um, you know, once you start self-censoring, that's when you're done.
but see these things that these things, these softwares, these algorithms, these
I understand where
filters,
I understand where you're going with it, James,
they
but
drive
there's the
people to
other
want to
side.
self,
But
because you're thinking to
there's the
yourself,
other
damn.
side of that. There's the other side of that where it's like maybe we've reached a point in society where everybody is so lazy that we need this kind of push for censorship just to see who's got the balls to speak up, who's got a soul. You know, it's kind of it, you know, yes, it's I understand your side, your point, the cynical aspect of anything, you know, any free thinking, anything, yeah. But here's the thing, they're not censoring me.
Gee, they're
we're
not censoring you because we don't have 1 million followers
oh, I know that. I
yet.
know that.
Now let's revisit this conversation.
But here's
when
the
we
thing,
get a
James. But
quarter
that's
of a
my
million
point.
followers.
But that's my point. Actually, that's kind of my point, though. Is I think that celebrity worship is actually one of the real pandemics. Is nobody wants to do that inner work themselves. They want Joe Rogan to tell them.
Of course.
They want Donald Trump to tell them. They want any of these people that we're going to have a discussion on controlled op here in a minute too. We're going to get to that. There's plenty of opportunities I've already had to segue into it, but I really want to wrap up the censorship part of it before we get into the controlled op part of it. Yeah, man, I think there is an optimist. All right, so first of all, let me start from the center. The more and more we go into this matrix, the more I see how everything really is perfect, how only perfection exists. It's something that Don Miguel talks about, and we talked about it in one episode where I was saying like the worse things get, the better that I feel, because it's just vindicating everything that I've been saying. It's making the voice that I've been using for the last 10 years, it's making that look like this guy's, he might be off sometimes, but he's never bullshitting. He's never lying. He might be wrong, but he's telling what he really thinks is the truth. There's no deception there. He might be wrong, but he's not trying to deceive. And I've been deceived enough in my life to where it's like, my worst enemy, I'm going to square up to him. I'm not going to deceive him. You know what I mean? Deception is just not my game. I'm just not down with that. But to get to the censorship thing and why I think it's actually perfect is like, I think that they don't want a solid scientific argument showing why the COVID narrative is false. They're forcing people to do one of two things. You can go down the path of being our slave, getting vaccinated and listening to us no matter what we say, or you can take that other route, but you're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to prove. You're going to have to prove that you're not going to ever self-censor. And it's kind of like, I kind of like it because it's separating the weak from the strong, and maybe it's time for that.
It is. I just you make a good point, G, but my thing is always, who the fuck are you to play God all the time?
But is it,
unless you are God, are you God?
These are, YouTube is a private company, and I understand what you're saying.
Listen, I get all of that.
They have a large sphere of influence, so I understand where you're coming from. But like what Ben Stewart does, his model, and I think this is brilliant, is he posts what he feels YouTube will not censor on YouTube, and then he does what he calls deeper dives, and he posts that on his website. You got to go to his website to get the videos that he feels are too. He doesn't want to test.
Yeah, of course, and that's what.
It's a good formula.
That's a good formula, and that's what adaptive people have to do. Like, I crush on certain entities all the time, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't use them. I do, but you're right. It's about knowing how to play. It's about knowing how to play the game, right? So we know that, we can grow our following on YouTube, but when we get to certain tiers, we might have to move that over to Patreon or something, or a website or something like that. And that's okay. That's okay. But to answer your question for what the question was, when it comes down to censorship, that's the question at hand. Soon we're going to have to start separating, internet ecosystems here, because I feel like the truth is going to live on a more of a blockchain internet, and then you're still going to have all your Web 2 internet, which is super censored, super filtered, and I guess that's fine.
But you don't think that the blockchain will be super censored and super filtered?
I think blockchain will be censored, but here's what you got to remember: they still are trying to get people to believe that the blockchain is super. What we want the blockchain to be, they still have to start at least with having people believe that that's what the blockchain is, or what the hell is the point of the blockchain?
I mean,
So I think for a while, like anything else, like when the internet first started, the internet was wide the hell open too, you know? So I think for a while it will be wide open, but yeah, it's not going to be forever. Of course not. No, no.
yeah, no,